let's get going. So hello, welcome. You might know me, my name's Corinne Helbig. I'm a storyteller and communications consultant. You probably all know us via the local Yum, our little honesty stall here in Tandanya. We started this stall a year ago, or just over a year ago in September 2020. And yeah, it was definitely the culmination of a long held dream, something that we'd been dreaming of doing for 4 or 5 years, I think, but we never imagined that we'd get the kind of response that we did. It has really, really taken off. We've had coverage in national magazines. Here's a photo of Carmelo and I looking pretty goofy, I think, in Frankie magazine earlier this year. We've connected with hundreds of folks online, all of you here as well. We're in next year's Permaculture Australia calendar for the August month. That calendar's just gone on sale. So if you like permaculture and you want to see us next August, that one's for you. But most important of all, I think we've gotten to know so many of the people in our hyper-local community, our neighbours, people living just down the road from us, people that we lived beside for 3 or 4 years and never even knew their names. And now we say hi in the street or go around to their place for a coffee, trade things. It's awesome. And yeah, I definitely think that's one of the most powerful things of having an honesty stall. So we've learned a lot over the past year, and that's what this presentation is based upon, everything that we've learned, I guess. And I wanted to have a quick chat to you about why I think honesty stalls are so amazing. We're particularly obsessed with urban honesty stalls because it feels like counterculture. Stalls are really common in country areas, and that's awesome, like great, honesty stalls for everyone. But I do think that we're all the same people wherever we live. And I am interested in challenging the notion that people can't be trustworthy in cities. So for those of you who might be living in urban areas or in larger towns, go you, like, hooray, let's get some honesty stalls happening in those urban areas. Country people, you're welcome too. There'll be lots here that's relevant for you, I hope. So yeah, these are all of the reasons I could think of that make honesty stalls super powerful. That element of trust, allowing communities to access hyperlocal organic food. I mean, that does depend a little bit on how the stall is run. And in my ideal world, stall keepers would prioritise growing their food organically and using recycled or reusable packaging as much as possible. I'll have some more tips on that later. But yeah, we can help lower food transport miles, reliance on industrial chemicals. We're building community and reducing dependence on supermarkets, which is so cool. And the thing that really lights me up is it's a way of sparking hope and action towards a more climate positive future. I know a lot of us are really worried about what's happening in the world at the moment and the climate emergency that we're facing. And this is a really, really small way that you can kind of yeah, I guess offer an alternative. First up, I think it's important to think about why you want to do this. What is the reason you want to have an honesty stall in your community or in front of your house? Because that's, I think, going to really influence the way you run your stall. For example, our stall isn't really about making money. We do charge for our produce, because we want to spark those conversations about the value of hyperlocal organically grown food. And we also want to feel somewhat rewarded for, the energy and effort that goes into keeping our garden and our stall. But we do have day jobs. So we're not trying to survive from this stall. And that does mean we can be rather relaxed about things like collecting money and whatnot. But if your aim is to make money, you might want to do things a little bit differently. So here's a few ideas that I had of reasons you might want to create a stall, to share your produce, to make money, to connect with your local community, to share the story of local food, all of those things, none of those things, I don't know. But yeah, I would encourage you to keep that goal in the back of your mind as we go through this presentation, because it's a choose your own adventure, make your own rules kind of situation. And what works here might not work in your community, or you might have a better way of doing it. So yeah, good to be clear on why, and then that you can kind of filter all of these suggestions through that. Also wanted to be clear right from the start that you don't have to sell your stuff if you don't want to. The basic idea of an honesty stall is that you make some kind of shelving, you collect up whatever produce you have to spare, You put it out the front, and passers-by can take what they wish. And that taking can come in many forms. You can assign prices and leave a cash box on your stall and trust that people will respect the honesty system and pay correctly. Or you can share food absolutely free. That's the take what you need, give what you can philosophy. And I've given you a few examples of movements around that there that you might want to look up or get involved with. So Grow Free is probably my favourite because it started here in South Australia, and that's just super cool. Food is Free and Grow Food Not Lawns are both American movements that have now spread all around the world, including in Australia. And probably everyone is now familiar with street libraries because they're popping up everywhere and they're super cool. So you can definitely get involved with those kinds of movements if you want. And a lot of the principles that we'll go through tonight are similar, whether you're charging or not. Or you can give some stuff away, sell other stuff, wholly barter. It's totally up to you. You're making the rules. Do whatever works for you. All right, let's talk about what to put on your stall. So here's a list of things that have worked for us. One thing I will say is that our stall has ended up being in quite a hot area, not a lot of shade. So we've noticed that things like we can't do fresh fruit at the moment because of the fruit fly outbreak in Adelaide, in Tandanya. But things like fresh veggies, like spinach and stuff like that, tend to wilt really quickly in our hot spot. So we've kind of moved towards a lot more dried and shelf-stable items. So fruit, jams and chutneys and olives and that sort of thing. That seems to work a little bit better for us. And I'll talk a bit more later about the location and placement of your stall and how to think about that, which influences things like what you can sell. I do know some people have a base range of products. So they, get proper labels printed out and have that base range that they always sell. We just put out whatever we have. And I've found the stall does crank along quite a lot when I'm constantly putting out new things. I think it gives people reasons to come back and see what's there. But that's kind of just because that's the easiest way to follow the seasons. One month we might have heaps of spinach and it's really easy to make homemade stock powder. Another month we might have foraged a heck of a lot of peaches and it's really easy to make jam. So there's not actually any reason for that other than, oh, we've got it, great, let's sell it. So yeah, again, whatever works for you. I've included a photo here of Jane, who has Ada Street sourdough. I reckon that's probably Tandanya, Adelaide's most urban honesty stall. It's literally on Ada Street in the city, which is directly in the CBD. But I've included her here because she only sells sourdough. That's all she does. She doesn't do anything else. So you don't really need to have a lot of stuff. You can just have one product if that works better for you. I do get a lot of questions about food licensing laws as well. And to that, I would say, well, you need to investigate the laws in your area. Food safety laws and food labelling laws are probably the two main ones that you need to understand. In a lot of cases, if you're giving food away, you don't need to adhere to those laws. I think eggs might be the exception. But yeah, if you're selling, in a lot of cases, you may need to, aside from potentially some fresh veg. And it does differ quite wildly depending on even council to council, let alone state to state, or if we've got people listening from New Zealand, that's probably really different too. So having said all of that, I do know that there are some honesty stall holders who sidestep this whole system. They have a do it and ask for forgiveness later attitude, because those laws are often made for big producers in a food system that's focused on a global economy and multinational companies, and it does make it really hard for small kitchen economies to abide by. So yeah, look them up, understand what the laws are in your area, and then make a decision on what works for your context, I guess. I think one of our big dreams for this movement is that stall keepers would choose to be part of a circular economy. So we can start to show, model how that can work in this modern world. So that's to say you don't need to buy new stuff. There's enough stuff in the world already. You definitely don't need to go out and buy, more jars or whatever to make your stall successful. We use recycled jars for absolutely everything, reused jars. We make seed packets out of old magazine pages. We handwrite our labels onto recyclable paper packing tape. These systems may not work for everyone, but think about ways that you might be able to use things that are already going around in your community, because yeah, it's just a really great way to model that, I think. And your community will love to help you with this. So please, please, please avoid single-use plastics. They're just not necessary. If you ask your community for help, they'll probably be able to give you more sustainable options that you can use instead. So I've got a photo here of a container swap sign that we put on our stall. We probably have put it out in total over the past 13 months for 1 month because we just get inundated by people donating. They're literally so happy to help, which is awesome. And yeah, we take rubber bands and seedling pots and all of that sort of stuff and reuse them. So that's really important because as probably a lot of you already know, reusing is much more environmentally friendly than sending all of that stuff to recycling to be made into something new. So again, another small way that we can model more positive, climate positive actions, I guess. And you can start right now. You absolutely can. Doesn't matter how much you're producing, you really can. We're novices. We live here in urban Tandanya in Adelaide. We're, I think, 2 kilometres from the CBD. To be honest, we barely produce enough food to feed ourselves. We're on this tiny block. It's less than 500 square metres, and yet we've got an Honesty stall and it works really great. Because, you know, as I was saying earlier, as gardeners, you often have a glut. Like, we might not be growing much, but the kale that we're growing, or probably zucchinis is the best example, might go nuts, and we can easily help share that abundance that we have. And yeah, even just one product is enough. So I've shown, included here a photo of Friday Hut Market. Quick aside, they were probably my main source of inspiration when I was looking for stall ideas when we were first getting started. Super cool dude. He sells only honey produced in wire hives, which is a natural style of beekeeping. Yeah, really, really cool. But you can see here that his stall only has honey, and it has literally 3 jars. That's it. And it works. It totally works. I know from following him for quite a while that that's now grown into bigger and bigger things, and he's now supplying honey to shops around Byron Bay. So you just never know where it will end up. But yeah, you don't need much. It's fine. You're not trying to be a supermarket. You don't need shelves and shelves of stuff. And actually, that's one way you can help reduce theft as well, is just by having maybe 1 or 2 of each product. So if someone does happen to come along and nick stuff, they're not taking all of your stock. So yeah, don't worry about not having too much. But you might be wondering, okay, well then how do you fill a stall if your garden isn't super productive? So here's some ways that we do. We really enjoy foraging wild foods. Probably the main one here in Tandanya in Adelaide is olives. They grow everywhere. They're actually an environmental weed. So you can kind of feel like you're doing something environmentally sustainable by harvesting the olives and curing them. We also regularly collect unwanted fruit from people's backyards. So we love walking around and being like, oh my God, look at that plum tree. Let's go knock on that woman's door and see if she'll let us come and take everything. And mostly people are only too happy. Obviously be careful about the current fruit fly outbreak in Adelaide, but yeah, providing you're in an okay area to take stuff. And it's just really nice to then return a jar or 2 of whatever you make out of that back to that landowner. They'll probably be quite grateful for it. And then the other thing that we do is make stuff out of weeds, or wild plants that people consider to be weeds. So wild fennel grows here. It's really easy to harvest the seeds and collect them for teas or cooking. But even just your regular weeds in your backyard, like, I don't know, dandelion and chickweed and nettle, all of those sorts of things you can dry and make them into stock powders or whatever. So there are a few other ways that we, yeah, supplement our garden when it can be, yeah, a bit sucky at times. All right, so let's go have a look at actually how to create your stall. I'm going to bang on a little bit again about reusing, recycling and repurposing. You do not need to buy something new for this, absolutely. If you have a look around secondhand shops, Facebook, Marketplace, Gumtree, even roadside hard rubbish, you're probably going to find something that's suitable. Bookshelves are awesome because they already have shelves built into them. But fridges can be great as well because they're insulated. So if you have an unavoidably hot location where you need to put, or cold, I guess, where you need to put your stall, you can make use of the insulation already built into a fridge. So I've included some photos here of our Honesty stall before it was an Honesty stall. We were literally walking home one day and saw a neighbour cleaning out his shed, and he had this huge pile of hard rubbish that he was going to send to landfill. And we spotted these shelves on that pile and pulled them out. And yeah, it's ended up being the perfect little spot. So Carmelo reattached one of the missing doors, and then we made a little roof with some old timber and corrugated iron. Didn't buy anything for any of this. It was all just stuff that was laying around or that our neighbour had. And it came up really great. We did choose to make it rustic by design. We thought it would be less likely to be stolen if it didn't look too fancy. But yeah, I've seen other stalls that are just like super schmick. So you don't have to follow that. You can have a beautiful, amazing stall as well if you want. Some things that I reckon will help you. A good roof is really helpful. I know some people have open roofed Honesty stalls, but the minute you get inclement weather or a lot of sun, that can be a real problem. Doors are really handy too because you can shut them when you're closed or when the weather sucks. You can. It's just really helpful. One thing that I didn't sort of consider before we got started, and luckily it just happened, we just happened to have them, was surfaces for signage. So you kind of want to have somewhere where at eye level-ish where people can see how your stall works. So doors, like open doors, are perfect for that. And yeah, the other thing that we did was found some old chains and hooks. So when the doors are open, we can hook them open so they don't flap around in the wind. So that's quite important too, to kind of keep it open and looking nice. I've included here a photo of One Tree Farm in Middleton in South Australia. So this setup obviously was already pretty great, but they're now about to relaunch with an entire shipping container. So they literally have fitted out a massive shipping container. I reckon it's about to become South Australia's biggest Honesty stall. So go give them a follow because it's really inspiring, just everything that they're growing on their farm garden and sharing. So in terms of location, most things you'll want to sell, whether it's food or flowers or anything in between, they're not going to do too well if they're left to sit in the sun for hours on end. So under a big shady tree is great if you can, or possibly against an east or south facing wall, because that will block most of the hottest afternoon western sun. Our stall does face east, but because Adelaide is like hellfire hot in summer, it means that we do receive the full morning sun until 11 a.m. And that can, already be 40 degrees by 11 a.m. on a hot summer's day. So as a result, we do often have to close on those days. And unfortunately, there's just no other orientation that we could use for our stall to make it more protected. Also having a spot where you get some foot traffic can be helpful. Ours is near a dog park, so we get lots of people walking past, which is really great. But I do know of stalls that are really successful in low foot traffic areas too, because word of mouth spreads. So if you don't get a lot of people walking past your stall, don't worry too much. It's going to be fine. You also want to look at local laws in your area and do your best to get on the right side of them. Footpath obstruction laws are probably the main ones here, particularly if your stall is going to be on council land rather than, just outside your fence or something like that. But if it's on your land and not obstructing the footpath, you're probably okay. And if it's on council land and probably not obstructing the footpath, you might be okay as well. I do know Little Cottage Gumboots in West Croydon. It's a little urban flower farm near us here in Adelaide, in Tundanya. She has hers on her front veranda. So people actually have to walk up to the house and collect from there. And part of her reasoning for doing that was the footpath obstruction laws. But she also was thinking that might help to reduce theft. So definitely an option. Like I said, ours is out on the street. There's just different options for you to consider for what might work for you. We don't lock our stall. ever. We felt like a big padlock might scream, there's something to steal here, and then people would break open our already pretty rickety stall and and break it. So we just bought this latch that you can see on screen. It was the only thing that we bought new, and it costs $4.95. But we did bolt the shelves to our front fence, so the stall is hopefully impossible to move. I have heard of people who've had their entire Honesty stall or street library just completely stolen, the whole lot, which just sounds heartbreaking. So yeah, bolting your stall down in some way is a must do in our book. We also close the stall at night, empty out the cash box and leave it propped open so you can see that there's no money in there. And that has, been really successful. We've had very few instances of vandalism and literally no vandalism overnight either, which I thought would be a big problem. I think just, we do sometimes go out and it's been opened, but people have obviously gone, oh, okay, there's nothing there, and moved on. So that might work for you as well. If you do want to charge for your products, there's a few different ways that you can collect money. We originally had a lockable cash box that we found secondhand, which I think cost like $12 or something. And we drilled 2 holes in the bottom of it and bolted it to the shelf, and then angle grinded. And when I say we, I obviously mean Carmelo. We angle grinded a hole in the top of it for a slot. And that worked super, super well for 10 months. And then that cash box actually got jimmied off in broad daylight, surprisingly. So since then, we haven't had a cash box. We've just had bank transfer, and it definitely hasn't worked as well. So that's something that was really surprising to me. I thought that in this modern world when no one has money, bank transfer would be the most used thing. But I think having a cash box is pretty important. We've also just set up PayPal, and we're going to be adding that on hopefully next week. So it will be interesting to see how that goes. I also have heard of this app called My Honesty Box. I haven't used it myself, but it looks pretty good. Basically, customers can scan a QR code and pay that way. I'm pretty sure the app itself is free to use, but it does use Stripe as the payment platform. So you might lose a little bit of your money to Stripe's processing fees. But yeah, I guess a combination of all would probably work the best. And I've included this photo here of this little stand in Sweden because the stall keeper, Jackie, contacted me about a month ago. She is actually originally from Bordertown in South Australia, and she's moved all the way over to Sweden and heard about our stall and decided to create one over there. And I just think that's the coolest thing ever. So yay, International Honesty Stall. So this is another question I get a lot, like how much do we charge for our produce? So a few different things. You could look at supermarket prices and decide from there, but you might decide to make your prices lower because you want to make them more accessible, or higher because of the amount of time and energy that goes into creating your products. You might be really official and calculate the time investment and how much the raw materials cost you and work out a profit margin. You decide. It's up to you. Again, you're making the rules. There's no hard and fast rules here. I literally just pick a price almost out of thin air and then try it. And if it doesn't sell, then I change it. Sometimes I price things higher because I've only got one of them, and I'll just write only jar or something on it. So I definitely don't have any kind of official pricing list or anything that I stick to, and no one seems to care. You can have a pay what you can model. We do this for our seeds, but I have had some feedback that people find that a bit uncomfortable because they're not sure what an appropriate amount is to pay, I guess because that's not really a system that's used very much here in Australia. I really like Pocket City Farms in Sydney, their approach. So they launched their Honesty Stall mid this year, I think, and mid-COVID. And they actually have recommended prices. So they do put a price on a product and then they say, pay what you can afford. Which seems like a really clever way of doing it. It kind of gets around that ambiguity of pay what you can, but still makes the products completely accessible for people who might not be able to afford stuff. And they also have a free food pantry beside this paid section of farm produce. So yeah, that's a pretty cool model, I think. I would definitely encourage you to let your locals know that you're into bartering and swapping. The energy and feeling that comes with the experience of bartering something with an actual other human is like amazing. You just can't even explain how great that feels. It's a really, really cool way to connect with people living really near to you. And it's super easy to do. Just put it on your sign. So we just have a sign that says, yep, we love bartering, message us or email us if you are keen. And people do. So we've swapped heaps of seedlings. We often swap seedlings for like eggs, or I think the weirdest one was spent brewer's yeast, spent brewer's wheat, which we feed our chickens. It's really nutritious for chickens. We've swapped out olives for seeds, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, get on board that. All right, so now let's have a bit of a chat about how to find people to buy your cool stuff on your amazing stall. You might know that my background is journalism and communications. So this is a bit where I give you a very quick crash course on how to use some of these marketing theories and tactics to help your stall thrive. Because to some extent, the success of your honesty stall does rely on how many people know about it and how easily they understand what you're trying to do. And of course, how good your products are too. But my advice would be spend an hour or so before you launch trying to figure out a little bit of your stall marketing. So here's the things I'd recommend you think about. Clear signage is really, really helpful, and having a name for your stall is just awesome. It's easy for people to remember and talk about. They can tell their friends. It's a really great sort of 101 thing to do. And then write that on a sign and make it big and clear and easy to read from a good few meters away. So this is ours. This is a piece of decking from our neighbour who had finished a decking project and had all these spare bits of wood. So yeah, I just bought a paint pen, watched a few hand lettering YouTube videos, and then very dodgily lettered the local yum onto that sign. It's pretty rough and ready, but it definitely does the job, and people can see it from the other side of the street, which I think is really quite important. We also then created 2 A4 signs. So the one on the photo here is larger font explaining some of our key values, and that's designed to be read from far away, from the opposite side of the street, ideally as well. And then we have a second A4 sheet that gives a bit more of the nuts and bolts detail, so how the stall works. We've included a bit about who we are because we think that helps people connect to what we're trying to do and maybe makes them less likely to steal stuff. So our names and why we love this project, I guess. If you're going to have opening hours, we don't, but if you want to, you could have them on there, your payment options. And we also sprinkled the word honesty through our sign, because apparently it can act as a psychological reminder for people. So yeah, maybe give that a go. Don't know if it works, but it's a good idea. And Canva is a really great way to do this. It's a free online design platform. Yeah, makes easy to make things look really great, and you can print from there and stuff. So definitely check out Canva. This isn't optional, but it might be nice to think about some branding elements as well. So I made this fairly shitty logo here. It took me 10 minutes. That was the time I'd allocated to it. Does the job. I used Canva for that one, was really simple. And then I used a website called Design Seeds to pick a color palette. So I chose these browns and blues that I felt kind of matched the browns of our stall. So I'm now using those colors everywhere on our logo, in our social media, any signage. And if you've been paying attention, you may notice that I've been using them all through this presentation as well. So yeah, not to go too deep into marketing chat, but creating visual cohesion can be hugely important for customer recognition and repeat business. So something really small like this, just picking a few colors and using them over and over, can actually have a really big impact and mean that more people are likely to remember you and keep coming back. If you hate social media, skip past this bit. It's non-essential, but if you're happy to spend a few minutes each day or so on social media, having an account can really open up a whole new world for you and your stall. Ideally, create it before you launch if you can, and share a few stories about, maybe how you're doing up your stall and some coming soon stuff. We did all of that on our account. So if you want some examples, we're on Instagram. You can have a scroll back through and have a look. We did choose Instagram just because I prefer it, but you could have whatever social media platform you prefer. You probably don't need more than one. And then in terms of what to talk about on social media, I think it works best if you tell a little bit of the story behind your product. So stalls are so different to supermarkets or pretty much any other way that people could shop. So, you know, tell them a little bit about that, about how you grew this broccoli and you planted it as a seed and then put it into your garden and looked after it for 3 months, and, you know, whatever it is. Yeah, try to help people connect with who you are and what you're doing if you can. And again, we've kind of done a little bit of this on our account. So if you want to have a look for some examples, we've got them. And I would love, 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 love for you all to use our community hashtags. So when we first started, we set up the SA Honesty Stall hashtag, and it's been awesome. It's got heaps of traction, and lots of South Australians have gotten on board, and it's become a really cool way for us to all connect and get to know each other and help each other, but also for customers. You know, there's starting to be a bit of a thing in South Australia now where people go honesty stall hopping, which is like the coolest. So those hashtags can be really helpful for people finding you. Aussie Honesty Stall and Urban Honesty Stall are 2 others that we're trying to get going. And there's been 3 states so far who've jumped on board their own state versions. So Tas, Vic and Queensland. I think we had someone here from New South Wales. So hooray, can you please start NSW Honesty Stall, please? Another good one to look at is just straight out hashtag honesty box. That's global, so not so good for connecting with your local community and peeps, but just really cool to see other stalls and what they look like. And yeah, especially if you're in that creating mode, you can get some ideas there. And this was a little tip that someone gave us before we started, and it's so great. Leave a pen and a notebook on your stall. Now, it will get stolen. 100% certainty it will get stolen. I think our notebook and pen is the most stolen item on our stall. So don't make it an expensive one, and don't go buy like a $100 fountain pen or something. But, you know, don't worry about it. Still put it out. People are going to write all sorts of cool stuff there. It's just such an amazing feeling to receive a handwritten note these days, when we really don't get them anymore. And people seem to love having a way to have 2-way communication. So it's, if you're having a bad day, going out and opening up one of those notes, it's just so encouraging. And when the kids leave them, oh my God, like your heart will melt. It's the best thing ever. So yeah, notebook and pen, definitely recommend it. All right, we're almost done here. Just before I wrap up, I wanted to let you know that you're probably going to get hit with some negativity from some people, even people close to you, if you mention that you want to do this. So I was told it won't work, the stall will be stolen on the first day, no one will ever pay for anything, people will break into your home, it will be vandalized. Yeah, it was pretty hard. I've included a photo of Jambella Farm shop here because Sally, the owner of this stall, was one of my main sources of encouragement. I think she's had her stall for 10 years or something like that in the Barossa Valley in South Australia. And she was like, no, just keep going. It's going to work. And it has. Yeah, in the main, we haven't had too many issues. I think 99.99% of people have been amazing, and I'm so glad that we did launch. But it does make me wonder, like, why do people feel the need to cut us down with this kind of project before we've even started? And having pondered that a little bit for this project, I think it's because you're challenging the status quo, and that can make people feel afraid. So people who are saying those sorts of things are probably operating from a fear mentality. But if you're thinking about becoming a stall keeper, you're operating from a hope mentality. So like, which world would you rather live in? I know which one I would rather live in. The vast majority of people, they're going to be totally lovely. Yes, a few people might suck, and you're just going to have to deal with that and move on if you can. But yeah, ignore the people who are telling you it's crazy. It's not. Choose to operate from a hope mentality instead, and it really will work. But you know, it doesn't have to be permanent. You can try. You can give it a go and decide you don't like it and just shut up shop if you like. Or you can have it for a while and then decide you want to do it in a completely different way. It's yours. You can do whatever you want. But in short, I think you've totally got this. You've got this. It's going to be great. You're going to make a statement that you believe your community is kind and honest and supportive, and that they want to be more connected. You're going to meet people who live near you. You're going to make new friends, have inspiring conversations. It's awesome. It's going to be great. You're going to create a space of hope in your community. And I don't really know if I can think of anything better than that. So go you, honesty spells for all.